What's up? What is up, everybody? We are back. We didn't announce this. We're starting a little later than normal, but again, 11 a.m. on Fridays. We're here with you. Phone been blown off the hook. There's a whole lot of smoke about this happening, that happening. May we hear some announcements? May some things start to kind of go down? What will our situation be here in the next couple of days? I think we've dropped a conference realignment video about every day this week. And so we've covered it from all angles, and so I think at this point it's, if you guys have questions, if there are things we want to talk about, I'll certainly kind of speculate on a couple of things. I'm hearing the same smoke you guys are, maybe a little more at times, but I think at this point it's let's get around as a family and let's talk this thing out. Plus, I only have so many more days in this studio. I only have this isn't even a studio. This is just like my front room of my house. But the studio that we're building is almost ready. And so I have a few more days to hang out with you guys here in the middle of my kids' playroom. And so wanted to take some time, wanted to get some questions off, wanted to talk a little bit about the ACC, wanted to talk a little bit about where I think Florida State is headed in all of this. Certainly a new conference, but what's that timeline look like? What do the next few days look like? There is a lot to be determined with anything and everything that goes on. There's questions around the August 15th date. And so let's hang out a little bit as a family today. Our top spot is up for grabs. Somebody can jump up on the leaderboard quickly. I don't know if Brad's awake or if he's sleeping or where he's at, but he's our all-time leader. We do have a wide open spot there on the other side of the screen. We'll get some people in here, and then we'll start talking about what may be next for the Seminoles. We did a video this morning, actually late. Well, no, it was this morning. It was after midnight. We did a video late last night, posted this morning on the grant of rights. We'll talk about that just a little bit. I think there's something big with that grant of rights that we'll get to here in just a couple of minutes. Not to bore you guys with what we talked about on this morning's video, but I will kind of give a quick recap on that, and then you can go watch that after this is finished up. Oh, look we got them rolling in. All right, Harlan, these people are awake this morning.
You a recruit and you ain't going to Florida State. What you doing?
Love it. Hey, TJ, want to take the opportunity to say thank you so much for your coverage. We really appreciate all your hard work. Now, you guys are what makes it happen. You guys are why we do it. If you guys don't tune in, then we don't make content. So appreciate you guys. And then we got another one.
Fire up the war chant and plant the spear. Nose wind.
Snagging that top spot, unfortunately got beat out by a penny. That's cruel justice for sure. But it's 12-0 until it ain't. I like that. I like the 12-0 until it ain't. Man. All right, let's talk about this, and then we'll get into some of the conference stuff. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button if you guys share to social media. If you have group messages, let's get your boys in here. Let's get your buddies and all your friends in here, and let's hang out. But let's talk a little bit before we get into the conference stuff. I do want to talk about, man, Richie and I debated on what the bigger game was between LSU and Clemson. And I was let me know your thoughts in the comments right now. Let me know, what you think the bigger game is between LSU and Clemson here in September, not Clemson in December when we play them in the rematch, which I'm manifesting right now. But, man, I've been pretty on board with saying Clemson's more important, but I'm starting to change my mind a little bit. And I'm going to tell you guys why in just a minute. I just want to see some of your thoughts. So more important game, FSU or Clemson in September. I've been a big believer in Clemson being more important for several reasons. Number one, I just think that the goal this year, and I know we're going for it all, but I know the goal this year is we all want to make the playoff. You want to win a national title every year at Florida State. Like, that's just what it's about. But to me, what's most important is winning the ACC, because you can't it's very unlikely that you would win a national championship without winning the ACC. I think your only path to do that is to go 12-0 and then lose the ACC championship, and then maybe you still sneak in at 12-1. To me, that's unlikely. I don't project the Noles to go 12-0. I think that'd be incredibly tough. And so I think that my take has always been that Clemson's more important because you've got to win the conference. And if you don't win the conference, then you don't have a shot. But as more and more and more time goes on, I am starting to come around to thinking that LSU is more important. And I'll tell you guys, it has a little bit to do. Okay, so let me read some of your comments. Most of you are saying LSU. Rob wants to be both of them. I think I'm going LSU, and for a couple of reasons. And then we'll talk about conference stuff here in just a minute. We've just crossed over triple digits. Let's keep it going. All right, Seminoles 03 wants that top spot. I'll take it, man. Give him a little love.
Touchdown, Florida State! Touchdown, FSU!
We're going to have I'm going to be like an auctioneer going back and tell these guys are going to nickel and dime each other all the way to the top, $2 at a time. Here's why I think LSU is more important. Number one, I think I saw somebody comment this. It gives you a little bit of a buffer. If you beat LSU, I think you go into that Clemson game so much more loose. You don't feel like that's an absolute pressure must win. I think you play that game knowing that if you win, you are probably looking at the playoff. And you have a chance to just go out and do ridiculous things. Also, just the confidence of beating LSU would give you so much more confidence going into that Clemson game, knowing you'd already taken down a top 5-ish opponent. We'll see when the AP poll comes out on Monday. But I think that's a big part of it. I think number two, I think for recruiting, it's big. Florida State has some massive, massive stuff on the horizon in recruiting, and that's not to overlook the fact that they have a top 4 or 5 class right now already. The Seminoles are recruiting at a elite level, and they've got more big-time fireworks that are coming, but I think they need to show some stuff on the field to flip some of the big fireworks that they're trying to pull off. And so I think that winning that LSU game puts them in a phenomenal position to pull off some really ridiculous stuff on the trail. Winning that week 1 game, it's the culmination of all of the hype that we've heard since December of last year, when we heard that Jordan was coming back, when we heard that Johnny and Trey were coming back, when we got the news that Jared Verse, he was like the last one, was coming back, when we hired Pat Surtain, when we were able to get Luke and Cam to shut things down, when we started getting talked about as potentially winning the ACC, when Charles Lester committed, when KJ Bolden committed, when we moved into the top 5 in recruiting, all of those things. When all of those things happened, I feel like if you lose to LSU, it doesn't undo all those things. I don't worry about anybody decommitting or anything like that. I just think that if you beat LSU, it just continues that skyrocket. It just continues that upward path, that upward trajectory, that momentum that you've had all summer. If you lose to them, it does kind of feel a little bit like a letdown, a little bit like there's some wind out of your sails, right? Now you're going to come back and you're going to win your next 2 games, which is good, but it does feel like there's a little bit of a letdown if that happens. Oh, look at my guy, man, Zach Forzette. Let's get after it. 1999. I need it to be September 3rd tomorrow, bro. I got a lot of work to do on this tailgate, so I need a couple more days, but it could be like next week. It could be a week from now.
Put a smile on your face. Okay? Because Florida State, if we gonna do it then, we do it big then. Let's go, baby.
Thank you for the love, my guy, Zach. Hey, congratulations to my guy, Zach. If we had wedding bells, I would play it. My guy, Zach, just got married. Y'all give Zach some love here in the comments. Zach just got married this week. So, listen, getting that last super chat in before the wife takes over the bank statement, I appreciate that. I appreciate you for sliding that last one in, bro, before she puts you on lockdown, because it ain't a fun place to be. So, all right. We got Wake fans in here commenting, crying because they're about to get left into irrelevance when we leave. That's cute. Listen, conference realignment. Here's maybe the most interesting thing to me is it seems like Miami's going to get left behind. I know you guys aren't upset about that at all. I think we have the Miami highlights somewhere in Harlan. I think we could certainly laugh at those from last year, but it sounds like Miami might be getting left behind. I don't know if you guys have seen this or not. Brad, your total is 30. I don't think you to take the lead today. Yeah, it's at 30. Miami, I don't know that we're going to get anything from Miami in conference realignment. Did you see the vote that came out? Jason Scherer I think he's the Arizona 247 guy. I think that Miami's tune has changed because I don't think they have a landing spot. I think the Big Ten, oh, that's a good one. I'll read it in a minute. I think the Big Ten and the SEC would take Miami at some point, but they aren't sending it just yet. They're not taking them anytime close to now just yet. Their brand isn't big enough yet for them to matter. And so I think Miami's going to get left behind. I think that's why Miami voted to add Cal and Stanford, because they know they're not going anywhere. I think Florida State, Clemson, UNC, Virginia, I think they can get out very soon. But I think Miami may get left behind here. There's a long way to go. It's not done. I'm not saying that they're absolutely out or that it's all the way over or anything like that. But I'm very interested to watch what happens with Miami in conference realignment. That's probably the most shocking thing to me. And I've always thought that we needed Miami to break this thing up, but it doesn't seem like Miami's still going to be there. We could play a little sound for my guy Seminoles 03, F. Karen Keith. Listen, that old lady, let her die in peace, all right?
Fire up the war chant and plant the spear. Nose wind, nose wind.
Brad, I haven't seen anything come through. So if you've sent that somewhere, I haven't seen it on PayPal or Venmo. So check again. And I certainly haven't seen it here on the Super Chat feature, Harlan, unless I'm just missing it. I don't know if you can, Harlan, go looking. Oh, you're the all-time leader, Brad. That's what Harlan's saying. So I haven't seen it anywhere else. So anyway, all right. Yeah, I agree with that. I think, the Cal Stanford thing, we talked about that earlier in the week. Kind of why that happened, why certain people voted the way they did, why the Notre Dame thing happened. We can give a quick recap of that, and then we can talk a little bit about what we think will happen this week. But I think with Cal Stanford and SMU, I think, the ACC, ESPN wants the ACC to continue. And ESPN knows, SEC, the ACC knows whether it's this year or whether it's next, Florida State and Clemson are gone. Right. And that's happening fairly soon. And so I think they want to keep the ACC going because they still make a lot of money on the ACC. They're not having to pay these teams barely anything. When Florida State and Clemson leave, they'll be able to pay them even less, and they'll continue to make money. And so they want to keep the conference going. And so by adding Cal and Stanford, you're adding more teams, and it's not going to be a quality thing by any means, but you are going to have to attack it with a quantity thing. And so you're going to lose Florida State and Clemson. You're probably going to lose UNC and Virginia. There's a chance you lose NC State. There's a chance you lose Miami. And so you're going to need more teams to backfill it. And so going with Cal and Stanford, going with SMU, who I think in 5-10 years with Big Five money could be a decent team, it makes sense why you would want to add them. If you're one of the teams that voted to add those teams, it's because you don't have a landing spot right now. And so you want to try your very best to add teams to protect the conference from dissolving. And so I think that's why teams like Miami, teams like Virginia Tech, teams like Pitt, Syracuse, Wake, Boston College, Duke, they all voted in favor of adding Cal and Stanford. We'll get to Shane in just a minute. But if you're a team like Florida State or Clemson, you don't want for a couple of reasons, you don't want the ACC or ESPN to get what they want. You want to use that to hold that over their head and use that as a bargaining chip to maybe get what you want later on down the road. And second, you don't want to add teams to this conference that make the conference even tougher to dissolve. Once the conference gets up to 18, 19, 20 teams, it becomes tougher and tougher and tougher for that grant of rights to ever go away. And so if you're Florida State, Clemson, first of all, you just kind of don't feel like playing ball with the ACC or ESPN. You kind of want to play as hardball as much as you can, and it makes your route to get out, I did not mean to rhyme that, even tougher. Shane, Miami needs a heaping humbling from realignment, and they need to get shafted by both the Power 2 conferences, develop separation in the Big 12. Listen, I saw another let's play him a sound.
Touchdown, Florida State! Touchdown, FSU!
Listen, I saw another comment as well that said that they wanted to keep them in the conference to keep the rivalry going. I think it's going to be tough to keep the Florida and Miami rivalries going if you are not in the same conference as them. Now, I think that if, say, Miami was to go with us to the Big Ten, I think that we keep, if we keep Miami in the same conference as us, then that will be an annual conference rivalry. And if we go to the SEC, then obviously Florida would continue to be a rivalry. But if we're in different conferences than both of them, say we go to the Big Ten, Miami goes to the Big 12, and Florida's obviously in the SEC, I don't know that you keep any of those rivalries together every single year. Obviously, I think it's more likely you keep Florida going. But man, as much as I want Miami to suffer and just die, I would hate to lose that rivalry. So if, my preference, I guess at that point would be to go to the SEC, play Florida annually in conference, and then Miami be your one out-of-conference regular opponent. But I don't know if out-of-conference regular opponents are still going to be a thing when we start going to 10-game schedules, 11, or 10-game conference schedules and things like that. So I think that might be a little bit tough. We'll see kind of how it all shakes out with Miami there. All right, we're about to go up into the triple digits, up at 200. Let's give some love to Garnet and Gold. Listen, what is it, Harlan? Like 24 days, 23 days till kickoff? We are getting incredibly close. Make sure that you're all ready to go and thread it up. GarnetandGold.com, whether you're looking for new merchandise, new gear, you're looking for the jerseys, the coaches' polos, the shoes that they just got in, whatever you're looking for, make sure you're shopping at GarnetandGold.com. Listen, little inside info. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or not, but Garnet and Gold is revamping their website. Go check them out. It's not ready yet, but it will be soon. I chatted with them last night. They do phenomenal work. They give back to our boosters in our NIL. GarnetandGold.com. You should not be shopping anywhere else if you're an FSU fan. No slaw. We'll get you 15% off at checkout. Make sure you get your orders in. You want them to be delivered so you can get your stuff and have it ready to go in Orlando. Hopefully you're tailgating with us there in Orlando. If you need the details on that, we'll throw it in the description at some point, either during the show or after the show. I asked Harlan to do a lot of stuff while we're on here live, so we'll see when that gets there. But conference realignment, back to it. Spoke a little bit about the grant of rights this morning, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you want to get them over via Super Chat. Hey, I think Brad pump faked us. I think Brad was just trying to get up in the other corner with his 310s. I never saw 310s come in, bro. Conference realignment, what we're hearing with the grant of rights, there's a theory, and I believe this to be true after speaking with a couple of people, but I certainly do think that this is interesting and provides Florida State a potential way of escape from the grant of rights. It sounds a lot like the grant of rights only applies to your home games. And so here's the theory that we pointed out this morning on our video. If you've already watched it, bear with me. Maybe if you have any questions or you want to follow up on this, I'd be happy to try and answer those if you watched this morning's video. If you didn't watch this morning's video, as Jalen would say, what are you doing? But with the grant of rights, it seems like they only apply to your home games. And so the theory is Florida State's currently getting paid $32 million a year from the ACC, and that covers their home games. ESPN has the rights to broadcast those when they happen at Doak Campbell Stadium. Well, if Florida State was to just pay the exit fee, pay your $120 million and get out, you can leave your rights with ESPN and the ACC and go to the Big Ten, go to greener pastures, and the Big Ten could only collect money on your road games, potentially neutral site games that you have scheduled out in advance that ESPN doesn't already own the rights to, right? ESPN already owns the rights to the LSU game that'll happen in 23 days. If you do that and you're getting the revenue from just road games in the Big Ten, your road game revenue has to be at least double what you would have made in the ACC, right? The ACC is paying you $32 million. What the conference has to gain from your 6 road games has to be at least $64 million. Projections are that it would be much higher than this. Next year, the Big Ten is going to start paying $70 million to each team. If Florida State and Clemson were to join the Big Ten, I think that number could go up even higher, maybe even triple or quadruple what the ACC is currently paying. And so if you can take just the revenue from Florida State's road games, it's still more than we would be getting in the ACC for home games. You certainly would have some teams that you need to talk into this. Obviously, Florida State brings a much bigger brand, brings more value to the conference. Everyone's paychecks are going up. But I do think it just leaves the grant of rights with ESPN and the ACC. They can move to the Big Ten and be totally fine with that. I think it also brings up a very interesting point. Road games this year and play 5 home games, or we'd be willing to play 2 neutral site games every year and 5 home games and the rest away. I think that becomes very interesting. I don't think there's anything the ACC or ESPN could do about that. In fact, I think in theory, now you wouldn't do this because you make a lot of money on game day from tickets and you want to keep your boosters happy and you need to play games in Doak. But in theory, you could play all 12 road games any given year, and ESPN and the ACC would get nothing from that. Now, that doesn't make a lot of sense because you need to play home games because you make a lot of money when you play home games. But if you strategically did it and you played a lot of your big games on the road, you could certainly make a ton of money. Question in the chat about who owns the grant of rights. That goes back and forth. ESPN, the rights are sold to ESPN. Who owns the contract? Well, DC have both signed off on the grant of rights contract. Because the ESPN is the technical owner of the broadcasting rights at this point, Florida State could also just go to the SEC and ESPN could just transfer those rights over. No loss of revenue, and you could play all 12 games at home in that scenario. You're obviously not because you need to split things up, but I do think that would be a very interesting way for Florida State to break out as well. I don't think the grant of rights is as ironclad as people think. You would still own your home rights until 2030. Playing with all 12 of them, who cares? Ton of questions on August 15th. Here is my take on that. All of the media camp, by the way, we always get you the most. But I should defer his said with critical of FSU very often, but I think they have this big public charade and you have this big public do it in the middle of October. I don't spot to be able to leave at that point. I think that there's a good chance, share it on major websites. I don't think it makes sense to do all of that and then announce right after August 15th and then have 2. Hopefully not. Are we getting comments about it? Things better now? Anybody in here in the chat? How's it going, guys? Where are we at with up over 300? I have no issue. We'll put a Discord link up in the very top. Come hang out with us on Discord. If you watch this later, actually can it. Or you know what we could do? I'll try my phone.